Hello.
Hello, welcome back to Still Untitled. I'm Will. Here with Adam Savage, as always.
Hello, and the lovely and talented Norman Chan.
Exactly. Today, something happened that if I had been on the East Coast in the hurricane with no power, and I came back and got power and got on the internet, and you said, "Hey guys, Disney just bought Star Wars," I would say you're messing with me.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. It's a very weird conflict.
It happened.
Isn't it? Yeah,
it's
totally
a real thing.
happened.
Yeah.
What are your feelings about this?
Yeah, let's talk about this.
You have very special feelings for Star Wars.
and
Someday
Indiana
I'm gonna run
Jones.
into George, and he's going to be like,
I think you've treated me a little shabbily on the internet.
Which time, George?
I have to say, when I think it all the way through, I think at least George isn't writing any more Star Wars films.
That's the first reaction everybody has. Thank God.
Well, it brought to light a lot of his, his quotes from the surface. Oh, I'm never going to make a 7, 8, 9. But then he had the notebook that had the outline for 1 to 9.
Did you look at the outline?
The outline said
it just had episode numbers and then conclusion by episode 12.
9.
That was the whole outline for 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
What was the outline?
It was a list of episode numbers.
Yeah.
Episode 7, episode 8, episode 9, episode 10, episode 11, episode 12. And then next to 12, and blanks next to all of them.
Okay.
And next to 12, it was written conclusion.
the word conclusion.
Oh, right.
That was
the outline. And suddenly everything makes sense.
That's not a...
It was a
makes
Mad
more
Lib.
sense than episode.
It was a movie script Mad Lib.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. Yeah, and you imagine that Disney they look at the long-term earning potential of the properties that Lucasfilm holds. And I imagine that they might, so they're going to end up doing what in 10 years? Over the next 10 years,
Yeah.
we'll revisit this, and they'll have released 3 Star Wars films, three more Indiana Jones films.
It's likely.
So as far as that goes, the Indiana Jones films, nothing could be worse than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
I thought we'd agreed never to speak of that.
It could be worse if Harrison Ford retires forever, and then it's Shia LaBeouf being
God forbid that
the
he
star of those
becomes
movies.
the torchbearer for that. You need someone radically. Harrison Ford's genius we talked about this, at being at the helm of both Indiana Jones and Star Wars as like your favorite guy in that, and then also Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Is that he's able to communicate like every really great action hero actor. Did I already go over this?
I feel like we've talked about this
yeah,
before.
that like he's able to have like the full range of complex emotions on his face all at once.
Yeah.
Like I'm sad and I'm happy and I'm terrified. I'm also a little turned on.
And I'm kind of a dick.
And I'm also a dick.
Yeah.
So,
because on paper, Han Solo and even Indiana Jones shouldn't be characters that we love.
yes.
But
what Disney has said, because they've already hired a screenwriter, it's the Toy Story 3 writer.
Yeah.
The guy who
And
also
Little
wrote
Miss
Little Miss
Sunshine.
Sunshine. And they're interviewing directors now. But
Yeah.
the 3 characters they want to bring back, at least from the original Star Wars trilogy, is Luke, Leia, and Han.
Yeah.
In some capacity, and they haven't
Right.
signed anyone yet.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford has expressed interest.
he hasn't ruled it out.
We're all happy about this. There at least being a 7, 8, 9.
Right.
These are movies we will pay to see.
Yeah, totally. I would totally pay to see
So,
them. Go ahead.
my question for you, because you worked on one of the movies.
I worked on two episodes 1 and 2.
Well, I didn't want to name them specifically, but you worked in the model shop when
Yeah.
you first were at ILM, and 1 and 2 were the first movies where they transitioned away from building all
and
the
then
models.
3 is very much many less models. Yeah,
Right.
each one is successfully less model.
But at least for 1, they built models and you built models for sets, because the miniatures sets.
We did set models were built for all 3 films.
Can you explain what a set model is? I'm sorry.
We would call them set extension in special effects. So it would be that they would shoot the actors against a green screen, and then we would build the set that they would be standing in. That's one way. Another way is that they shoot the actors in an environment that ends just above the actors' heads, and the model shop builds the set extension.
Oh, like skyline.
The rest of the set, not even the skyline, just the rest of the factory wall. Let's say.
Okay.
And now it's all those are CG too.
Now all of that is CG. Episode 1 had a bunch of spaceships in it. The Queen ship. There's some real
Darth Maul ship.
And the ILM model shop is famous
Yeah.
for building some of the best ships.
Yeah,
from 4,
absolutely.
5, and 6. So My question to you is, them going to 789, we can expect most of it CG. I mean, is this an opportunity? Would you ever wish that you could go back and make more ship models, more set models?
God. I mean,
and-
I personally want to make more ship models, but I don't.
Like invent new Star Wars ships.
Yeah, I would. 100%. I would love to do that. And I'm not so much of a purist about physical special effects that I think that they can't be done beautifully. And in fact, actually, I would submit that without the sound on, so you don't have to hear anyone talking, the progression from episode 1 to 2 to 3 is a progression of a steadily more lovely mise en scène of the actual movies. So that in the first one, it's like kitchen sink, just constantly shit's flying through the frame all the time. And it's visually exhausting and you don't focus on anything. By the third, episode 3, I think that there's tons of, you could freeze that movie in hundreds of places and the shot would look like a beautiful Ralph McQuarrie drawing.
And even that opening space battle, which by all rights, with the amount of stuff that goes on in the opening scene of episode 3, it should be chaotic and unwatchable. And it's actually, I actually quite like that.
Yeah.
Like, take the rest of the movie out.
I agree.
And through the Count Dooku fight, I'm good with that movie so far.
I totally don't disagree. So I guess my main feeling about Lucasfilm and Disney is that they are both large behemoths that have done tremendous amounts of good in terms of the film and content in the world and tremendous amounts of dreck. There's just, it's hit and miss. So I can't speak to anything except that I'm really glad the idea that somebody else might come in and freshen the Star Wars thing, the Star Wars franchise, is thrilling.
I mean, because George has to have a ton of baggage at this point with Star Wars in general.
Totally. And I mean, come on, the poor guy's been listening to the internet yelling at him and talking about his neck beard for like decades. That's got to wear thin on you after a while,
I'm sure
especially when
he
you're like,
just doesn't go on the internet. Don't go on the
You
internet.
think?
I don't think he goes.
he
has people who do that for him.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, I don't read the discovery forums. I don't need to hear people complain how I speak or crap like that. But,
Right.
So we were talking about the James Bond franchise. Again, there's a franchise that's very uneven over its history. And there's some phenomenal movies that I could watch hundreds of times and others that I hope I never catch a glimpse of for the rest of my life.
It's a good comparison because when we were talking about James Bond and how it was revitalized Casino Royale, they made their own movie but had the essential elements.
Yes.
So going forward, you would hope that they have the elements that made people love Star Wars, except for both an old generation and a new generation.
Right.
So what are those elements to you?
Well, I mean, the key elements are good story, characters that you care about, someone like Han Solo who's making fun of how silly this movie is within it.
Right, because that's what the prequel lacked.
Prequels
There was
completely lacked anyone making fun of
no
the
winks
movies.
and nods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to have that in movies that are this ludicrous. And really, you have to have villains that are scary. This is actually, I remember thinking this by the time I first was able to parse the structure of Raiders of the Lost Ark. The villains have to be scary, and you have to fall in love with the heroine.
Well, the Nazi with the hand was scared the living shit out of me as a young
He
child.
is terrifying. He is still terrifying.
And he's the scariest Nazi. I mean, outside of the real world, probably ever.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's a wonderful, wonderful characterization, and every time he shows up on screen, you think Belloc is a smarmy, slimy bastard, and that guy shows up, and Belloc's an amateur.
Oh yeah, yeah. He makes Belloc look like a kind of French patsy guy.
And it's so the problem I had with the second Raiders film is that the evil character is he's nothing. He's way over there. He's like a poster of a bad guy.
Well, he's too one-dimensional.
He's too one-dimensional. And then the third one is like a rich white guy. That's my villain.
Well, but if you look at Star Wars, Darth Vader is not he's terrifying in his visage, but he's a one-dimensional character in the first
He might
movie.
be one-dimensional, but Darth Vader is. I love him as a character, and it's a brilliant confluence of things. Calling him Death Father,
Fair enough.
right? Giving him giving him the most beautiful voice in American,
Making
like
it
living
super
American,
sinister. Yeah.
As a villain, also brilliant. He's compelling. So I am among all of the rest of the people that think that I think Star Wars is a beautiful and lovely movie because it's so hungry and so radical, and it still feels radical when you watch it. I remember my dad thinking it was a piece of crap Like, and I understand now why he thought, because if I saw it now, I might be like, that's kind of crappy. Of course, it occupies this really important space. I think Empire is the best of all of the six. It's just the most
Controversial opinions here on.
I think it's the
Still
most
Untitled.
competently put together.
It's directed by a very competent director.
Absolutely.
And it takes chances that would never get greenlit today. I don't
Like
think.
what?
Well, the fact that it ends on a sour note. It's sad.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't see American movies that ended with tragedy,
It's
with the
true.
hero getting his hand lopped. Spoilers, just in
Yes.
case. His hand gets lopped off, and he finds out that the bad guy is his dad at the end of the movie.
You know,
Holy crap!
a kid on the bus spoiled all that for me.
Oh, no.
Before
Really?
I saw it.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah.
that was even before we'd invented spoilers.
I know. He just told me. I was like, really? Darth Vader's his dad? So I went knowing that the whole time.
Oh, that had to.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was like 14.
We told you about our friend Gary, who spoiled the entire trilogy for his girlfriend by making her watch it in numerical order. So she knows that Yoda is Yoda, and
Yeah, that's not good.
It was real
That's
bad. It was
not
he didn't realize what a horrible thing it was until they watched Empire, and he was like, "Oh wow, I've done something really bad here." She's still pissed off at him about it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
What could be her unicorn chaser after that?
I think you just go watch Indiana Jones.
Watching
and
the
call it a day.
RoboCop, all three RoboCops in reverse order.
No. The third one doesn't
Don't-
exist.
Yeah, there's no third one. And that fourth
Oh, there
one
isn't?
No,
there
it does.
isn't.
But it does exist, but you shouldn't watch it.
I don't know if I ever saw it.
It's-
you good.
Yeah, you did the right thing.
Good.
And I'm not even. I know I've seen RoboCop 2. Man, you know what I'm waiting for? Sorry, tangent.
Yeah, no, that's what
Hot
we do.
Toys
Okay.
Yes.
promised last year's Comic-Con, not even this year's, but this year's. They promised a Hot Toys 1/6 scale Kane robot from RoboCop 2.
It's a large, yeah.
One of my favorite robots.
It's a good robot.
It's like
a typical design.
DX13 or
Yeah.
something in their Hot Toys lineup. Yeah.
and it still hasn't shown up yet. I've been waiting for it.
You could fly to Hong Kong and buy it at the store, I bet.
I know it has because if it it hasn't been released at
Not
all.
even released.
Yeah, because when it does, it'll be on eBay for a ludicrous price, and
Profit Center.
I want it. But wait, so Lucasfilm and Disney. I think that we were all afraid. Everyone was afraid about Disney when they bought Pixar. And of course, we all knew that it was a big thing that the first thing they greenlit was Toy Story 3.
and then Cars 2.
And
Well,
then
they were gonna
Cars
do
2.
Toy Story
so
3
we'll ignore
anyway.
Cars 2 for right now.
Okay.
Because Disney was going to do Toy Story 3 anyway without Pixar because they
Right.
owned the Toy Story brand.
Right. But
And it made
Toy
more
Story
sense.
3 with Pixar
Yeah.
was
it-
fantastic.
It was a wonderful movie.
wonderful movie.
And now it's the same writer
So
doing Star Wars.
Disney Disney is fully capable of making great stuff.
And
Even
they-
though when I worked for Disney, the joke was you called it Mauschwitz.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
And they did the same thing with Marvel, with the Marvel comics. And when they bought all of Marvel comics, they take franchises with great characters and develop them in a way that they can because they have these resources.
Stewardship.
Yeah.
So forgive my ignorance, but Avengers is Disney, yes?
Yes.
So
Yes.
look, I think putting Joss Whedon at the helm of the Avengers franchise is one of the most brilliant decisions that's been. I'm so given to hyperbole. It's a great decision.
No, it is one of the if you want to look at superhero movies and say that what was the smartest thing that happened in superhero movies in the last 10 years. I mean, you can make an argument for Christopher Nolan and Dark Knight.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. But Avengers, that whole thing, the whole multi-film arc of the Avengers has been great.
Yeah.
6-year plan.
Yeah.
So with Star Wars, they're not just going to make the movies. They will have the TV shows,
Yeah.
and they had TV show in development. Now they'll, with Disney and ABC, you'll get live action Star
I,
Wars.
I thought that the Jendy Tartakovsky Clone Wars,
The first
animated show
hand
was
animated.
gorgeous,
Yeah, right.
beautiful. Watched tons of it. I loved it. I thought that was a great expansion of the franchise.
And even the 3D animated stuff that followed that uses the same art style, like it started off a little soft, but apparently the quality's
Has it really?
dramatically improved on that. I've not watched
all
a bunch
It's a
of it.
revitalization
there.
of the brand.
Yeah.
For not just the kid audience. It's not just Cartoon Network, but for everyone.
Yeah.
And we'll see new merchandise. And
I think if we can just convince Disney to get rid of no one's talked about midi-chloridians for a long time, right?
Let's not. No, don't remind them.
What are midi-chloridians?
Yeah, exactly. It's it's
I
the
know
magical
nothing.
spiritual power that holds the force together. I don't know. What? We have a sensor? You can just take a blood sample and you know what's happening? What could possibly go wrong with that?
What could possibly go wrong?
What do you want to see out of episode 7?
It'd be
I mean, I feel like there's no story. The end of the Empire has hit you don't want to talk about the rise of a new government.
The expectations are
That's gonna be
different
really
than
boring.
the prequel trilogy, because the prequel trilogy, we went in there and we knew where it had to begin and where it had to end.
Right.
It had to be Anakin's story, and Lucas did what he did with it.
But
there is no expectation going forward. We knew the end of Jedi, and so it really is up
So
to
what
the
can
writer.
Luke do? Well, Luke is going to start to revitalize the Jedi.
Right.
Right. That in and of itself is a fascinating story. And that's going to be a really difficult thing to do.
because he doesn't, he's essentially untrained.
He's essentially untrained.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting story. The idea of, Han and Leia finally get together. Do they have a kid? Does Luke train them as a Jedi? Who knows how many?
There's-
I'm sure someone's sitting with a whiteboard trying to diagram all
Hundreds
of
of books, Adam.
possibilities out.
Hundreds of books.
Oh, really?
The
I haven't
extended
read
universe.
a single one of
They're
them.
all don't.
They're all
you
terrible?
made the right
That's-
choice.
No, they're not terrible.
They're not all terrible.
They're pretty good, but people are also invested in that expanded universe.
Yeah.
And I think they're not going to do that movie. I think the writers of those books have come out and said it'd be great, for them to take little bits and pieces,
Yeah.
and say, what you did in this book was okay.
So maybe what you do then is you jump forward 30 years or 40 years.
because that makes sense
Kind
given the
have
age of
to,
the actors.
Given the age of the actors, then you could do some really interesting stuff.
At that
It'd
point-
be lovely to have those actors pass a torch to a new generation of actors that were great.
Yeah.
You could find some great people. Tom Hardy should be in the Star Wars movies.
I would watch Tom Hardy in a Star Wars movie.
Totally.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I think the idea of lifting out the best stuff from that expanded universe.
It's also in the end been sort of a test case then, hasn't it? Right? I forgot about the books because of course the books and other comic books and stuff.
Yeah.
You've had you have a huge database of fan reaction to that too.
Yeah, when they killed Chewbacca, people got really pissed.
They killed Chewbacca.
They killed. Sorry, spoilers.
Don't worry, it's not officially canon
It's not
anymore.
canon anymore. Yeah.
You can't kill Chewbacca. The Wookiees live
focus
till
group.
they're like 200 years old.
They turn an entire industry into a focus group.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, just go to the Amazon, search for Star Wars Expanded Universe, sort by highest rated,
review.
and you know what the next 3 movies are.
That's a great idea.
Why would you not do that?
No, what you got to do is you've got to find another Joss Whedon. You got to find somebody, who knows? Maybe Damon Lindelof's entire childhood was his interest in narrative was jump started by the Star Wars universe. Put him in charge.
Oh God! See, that's the best part of pulling these quotes. They actually have quotes from J.J. Abrams
Right.
and from Jon Favreau, and everyone is so modest, and no one wants to commit because they know that they don't want the fan reaction. Oh, it would be nice. Oh, it was great. This is great to hear. I'd love to be offered that, but of course we all have ideas.
Favreau would be amazing.
You think so?
I think so.
I don't know. He's up and down though.
He is up and yes, but I think that I feel like he's one of the closest. I don't know. I mean, Iron Man is so Zathura and Iron Man. They're both they're and other stuff that he's done. Just loves film so much and loves that generation of filmmaking.
That's true.
I recognize that some of the output's been uneven, but I'm just a crazy huge fan of his.
Well, his Dinner for Five show was one of my all-time favorites.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And I mean, when his movies are good, they're so good that I think he'd be a perfect choice, especially because he also loves that bridge between the practical effects and the digital effects. And he really, really understands, like Peter Jackson does, how to use and fuse all that together.
Can we blame Iron Man 2 on the writer's strike? Was that during that period or was it?
No, you can blame it on Robert Downey Jr.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Yeah, there's just a lot of him wanting to be more of the movie. But Favreau is doing the
title
Magic
character.
Kingdom movie.
Yes.
So he is very in the Disney family.
Yes.
The big names that are circling around are Brad Bird, obviously, because
Would be
Pixar.
amazing.
But you're right, you need someone with a vision, because there are 2 ways you can go about this. You can have someone to shepherd next series of trilogies, one team of writer and director to do 3 movies, or you can have different directors, like the Harry Potter series.
And Harry Potter series it's actually, no matter what you think of it, one of the most remarkably consistent group of movies.
Even though
the
it's
thing-
different
yeah.
directors from most of the way
Chris
through.
Columbus cast so well.
Born Trilogy 2 is a great example of Doug Liman did the first one, but not the second and the
Really?
third.
And then Paul Greengrass. did
Paul
the
Greengrass
second
did the second and the third.
Yeah.
And the torch is so well passed that you don't really feel like the films are stylistically that different, even though they have distinct differences.
Well, but they
very
kind
sad.
of taste the same.
Yeah,
Right.
And they're really well done. All 3 Bourne movies are really well done.
We need someone with no ego.
Well, I mean,
You mean you don't want Kevin Smith to come in and Star Wars up
you
his...
never know. You never know what it's impossible. This is the thing is like there's all the speculation you can do. So what I just did in my head was I scanned through, right? There's stuff that I would say if the cameras weren't rolling about the way I think this sort of stuff goes. And then I realized, other people in the world are going to hear this, including maybe the filmmakers that I'm talking about. And I also want to, I'm very conscious of the fact that just like how you can't know what goes on inside of a marriage from the outside.
Yeah.
You just cannot. You also can't really know what goes on inside of a movie. And even the best intentions of everyone doing their best work can yield a shitty movie.
Well, that's the same in anything creative.
Absolutely.
I mean, nobody sets out and says, hey, I want to make something I want to make a real steaming turd.
So you can't say, Iron Man 2 is anybody's specific fault, just that in the end, the final conglomeration of everything yields something that's like, wow, that's just so not as good as the first one. Darn it.
Right. Well, I mean, ultimately, unfortunately, a lot of stuff lands on the director because their name's at the top of the list.
I mean,
like you said,
but who can say, right?
Yeah.
You can't. Yeah, you just can't.
Yeah.
Well, we'll buy our tickets for
Well, I will be there.
summer
2015.
2015.
Maybe I've told this story before, but back in New York, when I lived in New York from 85 to 1990, we would go to, my friends and I all were at the NYU Film School program. Well, my friends were, I wasn't, but we would all go to movies on opening night. That was the thing. That was the shit. And you'd go and stand on long lines because that was the scene. And you'd stand on a long line. And in the mid 80s in New York, no matter what the movie was, no matter how long the line was, and I was at the opening night of The Last Temptation of Christ, which included something like 7,000 people online and then a cordon of mounted policemen and 10,000 religious demonstrators with megaphones speaking in tongues. It was totally insane. Even at that line, there was a guy in front of me who looked down 59th Street and went, it's not as big as Jedi.
We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.